How are you? Fine, alhamdulillah. Ahlan wa sahlan wa marhaba. When did you arrive? When I was in Germany?
Yes. No, when Hazur was in Holland.
Acha, right. And how are you? Fine? Good. Where to press? Where not to? Yeah?
It doesn't press, just
It doesn't.
slide.
Right. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Shall we start this meeting? You have been having this
Yes, with Imam Sahib.
this hour regularly with Imam Sahib.
Yes.
Good. So please, let's start.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. We wanted to ask.
He is a trainee, but he has started learning very quickly, mashallah. I hope your presence will support him further, and if needs be, you can take over in the meantime and for short things, right? Please.
We would like to ask Huzur if he would like to say something about his tour to Europe.
Who?
Yeah, Huzur's tour to Europe.
Right. You see, like always, the tour to Germany particularly keeps me very busy because the Jamaat there is very sizable and it is truly universal in its character, cosmopolitan Jamaat. There is, of course, an element from the Germans themselves, which is a very good element. But it's composed of Pakistanis, Indians, Bangladeshis, Turks, Arabs from all different countries, and Europeans, East Europeans, in very large number, and West Europeans as well, and some Americans, Canadians, etc. So the German Jamaat is truly a miniature world in itself. And Ahmadis from all different nations and countries have got mended together into one beautiful whole. So that is why they keep me busy, because I have to attend separate meetings with them because of the language and the style of questions and so on. So I have to have a meeting with Bangladeshis, one with Francophone Africans, English-speaking Africans, and Arabs, and Francophone Arabs, partial Arabs, like Algerians who speak French and Arabic, like Senegalians, and so on and so forth. So because of different cultures, different languages, different like-minded people, instead of sitting in one meeting, we have to have different meetings altogether. So as such, the daily program was very busy. Sometimes the day, of course, always starts with an early morning walk immediately after the prayer. And because the prayer time has come very close to the midnight, so the day started early, and then afterwards, because the place of Ijtima was at some distance, about 80 kilometers or 100 kilometers, so I had to leave for that about an hour before the time began. So that brought me back home almost 12 o'clock or thereabout. Occasionally I had to return early and say the prayer in the mosque in Frankfurt, I mean. But that early means 10:30, 11, that sort of thing. So it was a very busy and interesting day I passed, every day in fact. But I think let him first translate these introductory remarks, then I'll turn to certain points of interest.
ذكر حضرة أمير المؤمنين أن في جولته لبعض الدول الأوروبية قال حضرته أن الجماعة الإسلامية الأحمدية في ألمانيا هي جماعة كبيرة وجماعة عالمية حيث تشمل أحمديين من جميع البلدان منها دول شرق أوروبية، وتشمل أيضا العرب والأتراك والبنغلاديشيين وغيرهم من الجنسيات الأخرى. وكان من المحتم علينا وأن نعقد اجتماعات ولقاءات مختلفة بسبب اختلاف اللغات واختلاف طراز الأسئلة التي تطرح في هذه اللقاءات. فكان منها لبعض المتكلمين بالبنغلاديشية أو الفارسية أو العربية وغيرها من اللغات الأخرى. وقال حضرته أن البرنامج اليومي كان مكتظا وكثيفا، حيث كان يبدأ يوم العمل من بعد صلاة الفجر، وأن صلاة العشاء كانت تقرب منتصف الليل، فكان يوم العمل طويلا ومكتظا. وأيضا مكان الاجتماع، المكان الذي عقد فيه الاجتماع كان يبعد قليلا عن المبيت، فكان عليهم أن يغادروا البيت ساعة قبل الوقت المحدد. ويقول حضرة أمير المؤمنين في بعض الأحيان كنا نرجع مبكرا إلى مسجد لنؤدي الصلاة، ويقول مبكرا أن هذا كان في الساعة 10:30 أو 11:10. فهذا كان فكل يوم في ألمانيا كان يوما ممتعا وشيقا بالنسبة لي.
One very interesting thing which I would like to share with you is about MTA. In one of our German meeting, where largely it was the Germans who were invited to ask questions, there I was told that there is a group from a school of teachers and students who want to present me something which they have prepared themselves. So I was amazed. I said, but how do they know me and what happened? Then I was told by the head teacher who had come there with them that it is because we have been watching MTA. And we are so impressed by MTA that we must pay you our compliment here in the form of a shield which we have prepared. So they had prepared a shield which they presented me after the meeting. And the shield, instead of writing MTA, wrote Mirza Tahir Ahmed. Instead of the initials, it gave the full name. That was a real surprise, you know. They had gone deep into the significance of the similarity of the same initials for MTA and the initials of my name. And then below they also wrote the other significance, Muslim Television Ahmadiyya in full. So they related both the things. And they were quite sincere. And that is what I found about the Germans. Not only now, but every time I went there, I found that Germans are not as rigid and, you know, strict and dryish as they are presented by other Europeans. The Germans are people of truth and honesty, and a large number among them are very straightforward, far more than many Europeans could boast about that. And because of their truthfulness, straightforwardness, if they find any hanky-panky, you know, any crooked behavior, they suddenly shut their eyes to such people. You know, the light of interest goes off, you know, is extinguished in their eyes. And that is why people think they're rather rigid and dryish and withdrawn. But at the same time, when they discover such qualities which they love among foreigners, they fell head over heels for them and immediately show interest and befriend them. So I have noticed this, that the Germans everywhere now are discovering Ahmadis from their character and beginning to show their love, which we could never imagine from them before. Because of the traditions of Nazism, there have always been the fears about them hating the foreigners wherever they come from. But they have very intelligently handled this problem on other counts as well. But as far as Ahmadiyyat goes, it is just because of their getting closer to Ahmadiyyat and knowing what sort of people they are, that they change their stance completely from coolness to warm love. And of that I'll give you some instances. Right?
لقد أراد حضرة أمير المؤمنين أن يذكر لقاء خاصا كان معظمهم من المشتركين الألمان، وقال أنه كانت في ذلك اللقاء فرقة من الطلبة والمعلمين، وقد أرادوا تقديم شيء مميز أو خاص لحضرة أمير المؤمنين، وتعجب حضرة أمير المؤمنين لمعرفتهم به وكيف وصلوا وكيف تعرفوا على حضرة أمير المؤمنين. فقال ممثل عنهم أنهم كانوا يشاهدون المحطة الإسلامية الأحمدية MTA، فقدموا لحضرة أمير المؤمنين تحفة رمزية كتب عليها MTA، وكانت الأحرف الأولى من اسم حضرته ميرزا طاهر أحمد، ومن تحتها كتبوا MTA مسلم تلفزيون أحمدية، أي التلفزيون الإسلامي الأحمدي، فبهذا ربطوا الاثنان معا. وقال حضرة أمير المؤمنين: أردت أن أذكر شيئا مميزا بالنسبة للألمان، فليس فقط في هذه السنة، فإنما كلما أذهب إلى تلك الدولة أنا أشعر بشيء مميز. أو الاعتقاد الشائع على أن الشعب الألماني هو شعب قاسي الطبع، ولكن يقول حضرة أمير المؤمنين إن الألمان هم شعب صريح وصادق يميزهم عن غيرهم من الشعوب الأوروبية. فإذا يرون بعض المظاهر والعادات لا تعجبهم فيغضون النظر، فيتجاهلون تلك الفرقة أو تلك الفرقة من الأجانب في دولتهم، ولكن عندما يرون شيئا يلفت أنظارهم فيقدمون لهم الاحترام والحب العميق. فعند معرفتهم بالجماعة الإسلامية الأحمدية قدموا له يوجهون ويعاملون أفراد الجماعة الإسلامية الأحمدية بحب وإخلاص. والخلفية ما يشيع عن الألمانيين أن الخلفية ما نتجت عن الطبيعة النازية، ولكن الألمان في هذه الأوقات يحاولون أن يظهروا أو يتخذوا كيف أن يعاملون هذه القضية بشيء أكثر ليونة ويعرضوها بشكل أفضل أمام الناس.
Right. Now, when I can quote an example from my experience, recent experience. I have been going to Hamburg for a long time, but the gentry there, the important people of the town, etc. Hamburg is a very big city and a proud city for that matter. Never took much interest. In fact, they knew very little of Ahmadiyyat, if at all anything. Since our question answer sessions have started, things are changing very rapidly. Last year when I went there, I sat with them in a question answer session. Those who were very rigid in the beginning and very apprehensive of Islam and Islamic values began to open up, and before the meeting was over, they had turned into friends. And some of them required me to pray for them because their wives were very irreligious, if not irreligious, and they would not like their interest in this. And those important peoples who had come during that meeting perhaps had been talking to the television people, etc., about us. So suddenly the Hamburg television station started taking interest in Ahmadiyyat, and they requested themselves, the local Jamaat, that they would be obliged if they could produce that video of my question answers, because they have a demand for that. and that was shown in two parts and then repeated. And they said, we have more demands. I don't know how many times it was repeated. It must have had some impact, because this time, for the first time, we heard from the member of the parliament in that region that he wanted to meet me. He is a very well-known, renowned person because of his interest in human affairs. He's a very scholarly man, very widely read person, and a professor of something at the university. I think he was before he became a full-time member, or he is still visiting professor. So a very knowledgeable person on the history of this and that. And he expressed a desire to come and meet me. Of course, I was all obliged and I welcomed him. And he sat with me for about 3/4 of an hour, and was very satisfied with all the queries he made, and answered the answer I gave. So he parted as a permanent friend, assuring me that now, whenever he would like anything, I would like anything from him to be done, he would be gladly at the disposal. So that shows the impact not only on the German people when they come to close and ask questions, but through television also we are gaining wider influence which we couldn't have dreamed of. So that's one incident which indicates the nature, the quality of German people. Otherwise, these hamburgers, not hamburger, eating one, I mean, a different hamburger, are very proud people. They look down at other parts of the Germany as though they are less cultured. They say they have a rivalry between the Munichans from Munich and they from the North Pole, South and North, extreme. They believe their language is the best and their pronunciation is excellent. The Munich people think their language is the best and their accent is the best. So there is an old life rivalry. But as far as the development of the country is concerned, Hamburg has always been the seat of learning and industry, of course. It's a very powerful country. That is why half of it was destroyed by the bombing of the Allies. When I visited there in 1956 for the first time, I saw if half of the city is destroyed, it appears as if the entire house is destroyed. You see, some nearly damaged houses on this side, some on the other. The whole township was in ruins. But they have rebuilt it so beautifully that the landscape around also has completely changed. So these are the people who are showing interest in Islam genuinely. That shows they are honest people. They are not prejudiced without reason. When they are fed with wrong information, of course they would be prejudiced. But when they come to discover the truth as it is, then suddenly they change stances. Right?
لقد ذكر حضرة أمير المؤمنين مدينة هامبورغ وقال إنها مدينة كبيرة والناس في هذه المدينة لم يعرفوا الكثير عن الأحمدية ولكن بعد
In Pakistan, if you had Medina for any other town than Medina Munawwara, you may be lynched. If an Ahmadi says that, there's a strong exception to this. We're talking of Hamburg and calling it Medina. There must be German agents. Come on.
يقول حضرة أمير المؤمنين إن هامبورغ هي مدينة كبيرة وأن الناس هنالك لم يعرفوا الكثير عن الجماعة الإسلامية الأحمدية ولكن بعد انعقاد مجالس الأسئلة والأجوبة حيث يجيب حضرة أمير المؤمنين على أسئلة السائلين وبشكل عفوي وروتيني فبعض السائلين كانوا يأتون إلى هذا المجلس متعصبين ذوي طبع قاس، ولكن بعد الإجابات يصبح لديهم شعور آخر وتفاهم، يبدون تفاهما مع الجماعة الإسلامية الأحمدية. ف كانت بعض أو قناة من القنوات التلفزيونية في مدينة هامبورغ قد طلبوا من الجماعة المحلية في مدينة هامبورغ أن تحضر أو أشرطة الفيديو التي سجلت عليها هذه المجالس، وعادت وطلبت مرة أخرى مجالس أخرى. وقال حضرة أمير المؤمنين أثناء مكوثي هنالك جاء عضو برلمان وهو معروف ومثقف وطلب الالتقاء بحضرة أمير المؤمنين، فرحب به حضرة أمير المؤمنين وقضى معه 45 دقيقة. وبعد هذا اللقاء أعرب عن فرحه وسعادته بلقاء حضرة أمير المؤمنين، وقال أنه سوف يكون صديق دائم للجماعة ولحضرة أمير المؤمنين، وسيقوم بتقديم أي طلب يطلبه حضرة أمير المؤمنين في المستقبل إذا كان هنالك أي شيء. فهذا يظهر الأثر ليس فقط على الأناس الألمانيين، وإنما يظهر أيضا الشهرة التي تكسبها الجماعة عن طريق التلفزيون الإسلامي الأحمدي. فالناس في هامبورغ يفتخرون بأنفسهم، ويقولون هنالك شجار كما يقولون بين المنطقتين في الشمال والجنوب. ففي مدينة هامبورغ يقولون أن هم لغتهم الألمانية هي أفضل وأرقى من اللغة الموجودة في الجنوب في مدينة ميونخ وغيرها. ويقول حضرة أمير المؤمنين لا شك أن هذه المدينة بالنسبة للتطور الصناعي في الدولة فهي من أكثر المدن تطورا. يقول حضرة أمير المؤمنين أن لقد رأيت هنا ولهذا الشيء قامت الدول المتحالفة أثناء الحرب العالمية قاموا بتدمير هذه المدينة ومما يبلغ إلى نصف مساحتها، ومما أدى إلى تغيير وجه تلك المدينة. فهؤلاء الناس الذين يبدون تقبلا للإسلام وتقبلا للجماعة الإسلامية الأحمدية، ولكن طبعا عندما تقال لهم الحكايات أو الأفكار الخاطئة عن الجماعة الإسلامية الأحمدية يتحولون إلى ناس ذو طبع قاس ولا يريدون الاستماع إلى الأحمديين.
Right. The second incident is again it belongs to a township about 200-300 kilometers from Hamburg to the south, where I visited last time. It's a university township. It's famous for its educational atmosphere. Naturally, when I visited there last year, it were mostly the students, professors of all different subjects, and the mayor was also a very enlightened gentleman, and representatives of the press and other intellectual professions and pursuits were all there. And the atmosphere was so wonderful, they were so decent, yet they would not spare me any question, So that was the beautiful part of it. They would come with very intellectual, issues and questions which could surround me, that sort of something, and leave me completely disarmed. But with the grace of Allah, the Quranic knowledge cannot be, played down by any noise or anything. So my answers naturally were with reference to the Quran and the Hadith, mostly with the reference to the Quran. And at every answer, the questioner began to nod his head or her head in affirmation, except for a few which continued for a while, until all their different questions were exhausted, and then they said nodded and retired. So it was a very interesting atmosphere and intellectual meeting. Now the impact of this can be judged from the fact that when I visited Germany this time, a very sincere invitation was already there waiting for me from the mayor himself. He said, the people who came to the last meeting, the message told me, they are desirous of coming again. So I shouldn't miss this township this time. And the mayor would love to present to me a key of the town as an honor to be bestowed upon you in the memory of how you met with, how you responded to our queries. And thirdly, it said the request was that the township will host a dinner in my honor in the mayor's office. So the representatives of the town, he would like to invite me to that dinner, and he insisted that I shouldn't refuse. So, but unfortunately something happened on that day, that because of some accidents on the road, it was impossible for us to reach the town in time. The time was 6 o'clock of the meeting, and up to 8 we were to sit in session, and from then on they were to retire for their dinner. Then I had to go to the mayor's invitation. But it so happened that by 8 o'clock we were still caught in that rush. In the German autobahns, once it is the rush hour and an accident takes place, then it's impossible to move. For about half an hour we stood still. And then we went to some side roads and roamed all around. Then we telephoned them and told them, look here, we are still about half an hour's distance or an hour distance from you. So please apologize to the audience and tell them that next time, inshallah. So when the message was conveyed, they had already waited there for 2 hours. And then they put the issue to the House. And they voted in the end, like these academicians would behave. And they voted that we'll have the early dinner, but would still wait to have the session, which if started at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock about, might have lasted till 11 o'clock, and then afterwards my dinner, and then returning to Frankfurt, would take me by the time morning prayer, back home. But anyway, we still couldn't make it because the roads we took, they were the small town village roads, We got stuck here and there until Amir Sahib, in all panic and so in desperation, he telephoned them again and said, look, what can we do about it? So they said, all right, we'll send the key of the town through our representative, and meeting can be postponed till next year. So this is the impact on the German townships, which are so highly educated. So while in the beginning their questions were obviously prejudiced because of the anti-Islamic propaganda carried out by the Western media. So the potential for change is fantastic. So that is why I have been praising the German people. If Islam wins the German people, it would win the whole of Europe. And if you win Europe, then the entire world is at the feet of Islam. So that is why I love German people so much, because they have the potential of turning towards truth more bravely than any other people of Europe which I have estimated. Their diplomacy, the cultural refinements stand in their way, and truth. That's the problem.
لقد ذكر حضرة أمير المؤمنين وقال أن هنالك قرية صغيرة قمت بزيارتها في السابق، وهي كمدينة جامعية وتتميز بمناخها الدراسي. فقام حضرة أمير المؤمنين بمقابلة بعض المحاضرين وبعض الرجالات في تلك المنطقة، وقال حضرة أمير المؤمنين: هذا الشيء الذي أحببته في تلك المنطقة، الجو المميز والناس من طبقات مختلفة ولكنهم من الطبقة المثقفة. فكانوا يحاولون أن يقدموا إلى حضرة أمير المؤمنين أسئلة صعبة وتتعلق بالحياة بالأحوال اليومية في العالم أيضا، وكانوا يحاولون أن يقدموا الأسئلة من جهة معينة أو جهة أخرى، حيث يحاولون حصر أمير المؤمنين لكي لا يستطيع تقديم الجواب على ذلك. ولكن قال حضرة أمير المؤمنين: العلم الذي زود لنا في القرآن الكريم هو العلم الكامل. فكنت أجيب على أسئلتهم طبقا للقرآن الكريم والحديث. فكان بعض السائلين يهزون برؤوسهم موافقين على ذلك الجواب وشاكرين لحضرة أمير المؤمنين، وبعضهم كان يأخذ حضرة أمير المؤمنين بعض الوقت في إقناعهم، ولكن في نهاية الأمر كانوا يوافقونه في ذلك. ذكر حضرة أمير المؤمنين أن كانت هنالك دعوة من رئيس البلدية أو رئيس تلك القرية، وأراد فيه أن يقدم له هدية لحضرة أمير المؤمنين إعرابا عن احترامهم له، وقد كانوا يريدون تقديم مفتاح القرية لحضرة أمير المؤمنين، وأنهم كانوا سيعقدون وليمة في لدى رئيس البلدية لحضرة أمير المؤمنين، وكان هنالك سيعقد مجلس أسئلة وأجوبة أيضا بعد تلك الوليمة. ولكن قال حضرة أمير المؤمنين: للأسف حدث شيء، كانت هنالك بعض حوادث الطرق في الطرق الرئيسية في ألمانيا، وإذا كانت هنالك بعض الحوادث في الطرق الرئيسية في أوقات زحمة، فمن الصعب الانتقال من مكان إلى آخر في تلك المناطق. فكان من المفروض أن يعقد اللقاء قبل ذلك، كان لقاء قبل البرنامج الذي سيعقد في هذه القرية، وكان من الساعة 6 حتى الساعة 8، وفي الساعة 8 سينتقل حضرة أمير المؤمنين ويعقد لقاءه في القرية الجامعية التي ذكرناها. ولأجل التأخير قاموا بالاتصال برئيس البلدية أو المسؤولين في تلك المنطقة، وتأسفوا على التأخير الذي حصل من جراء هذه الحوادث التي كانت في الطريق. ومع ذلك الأفراد الذين كانوا ينتظرون حضرة أمير المؤمنين وقد كانوا قد انتظروا لمدة 2 ساعات، حولوا ذلك أو أرادوا أن يصوتوا جميعهم ويقرروا فيما يفعلون، فقرروا وأصروا جميعا على أن يعقدوا مجلس الأسئلة والأجوبة. فطلبوا من حضرة أمير المؤمنين أن يأتي إلى تلك القرية، وحاولوا بعض الشوارع أو الطرق الصغيرة في محاولة إلى الوصول إلى تلك القرية، ولكن كانت هنالك بعض الطرق والمشاكل في الوصول إلى تلك القرية. فطلب أمير الجماعة في ألمانيا أن يعفوهم من زيارة هذا المكان في هذه السنة، وإن شاء الله سيلتقي بهم في السنة المقبلة، وعلى هذا أجلوا هذا اللقاء للسنة المقبلة إن شاء الله. وتعهدوا في أن يرسلوا مفتاح القرية الذي وعدوا حضرة أمير المؤمنين به عن طريق ممثل لهم. فيقول حضرة أمير المؤمنين: لهذا السبب أنا حمدت الناس الألمانيين أو الشعب الألماني. فيقول حضرة أمير المؤمنين: إذا كسب الإسلام ألمانيا فسيكسب به أوروبا بأكملها. فلهذا أنا أحب الألمانيين لعاداتهم وأطباعهم الخاصة، فأنا أقدرهم وأحترمهم جميعا.
You see, another very important thing about these Romanian people is that once they accept Islam, they do it meaningfully, boldly and meaningfully, you know. Many Ahmadi girls from Germany observe Parda much better than many Muslim girls from Indian or Pakistani origin, who have been brought up in veil and things. The Germans are doing far better than they. So their change is so complete that they say tahajjud prayers, they see good dreams from God, and suddenly, you know, they turn into past ladies. And the beauty about their conversion lies in their nearness to God, which is genuine. It is not a nominal change in religion. So they show steadfastness to Islam and love of Islam even after their husbands have been cruel to them. It has happened many times, not too many, but still, many times to be a source of pain to me anyway, that some husbands have not been responding humanely and in the Islamic way to the courtesy and noble qualities of these German wives. So after a while, you know, they started treating them cruelly, and sometimes it also ended up in a divorce. But the ladies were absolutely steadfast. They still bring up their children in the best of Islamic traditions, and their love of Islam and Ahmadiyyat is completely untouched by their family affairs. This is again a great compliment to the people of their clear-mindedness, you know, and they don't confuse things. While in our countries, mostly Indo, Pakistan, etc., if somebody becomes an Ahmadi and some other Ahmadi partner misbehaves, they start writing taunting letters to me. Is this Ahmadi? You know, as if this is the only Ahmadi. I became Ahmadi with such love and this is what some Ahmadi did to me. Even this morning I received such a letter. But the German people are so wise and clear-minded. They don't mix things. This is his Ahmadiyyat, he's a wrong man. Why should I destroy myself for his sake? And now the German scholarly people are also getting interested, and they're coming from from different cities and townships in greater number than ever before. So this is a good sign, alhamdulillah. And I hope, inshallah, this is going to create some big differences in future.
ذكر حضرة أمير المؤمنين وقال أن هؤلاء الناس إذا يقبلون الإسلام فإنهم يعنون ذلك بكل صدق وإخلاص. فذكر حضرته بعض الطالبات الذين يلبسن الحجاب، ويقول أن هؤلاء الطالبات يلبسن الحجاب أكثر تمسكا من بعض الطالبات أو الفتيات التي عشنا أو ولدنا أحمديات، وفي بعض وهذا يدل على قربهم من الله سبحانه وتعالى وإخلاصهم للدين الذي انضموا إليه. فمنهم من كان يعاني من صعوبة في إقناع أزواجهم في أداء البيعة والانضمام إلى الإسلام، فبعض الأحيان كان تؤدي هذه المشاكل إلى الطلاق، ولكن السيدات كانوا بقين على قرارهم وانضمامهم إلى الإسلام. ويقول حضرة أمير المؤمنين هذا الشعب لا يهتم كثيرا إذا أحدث أو قام أي أحمدي بأي خطأ أو خطأ صغير ويقوم بانتقاده، فبعض الناس الذين ينضمون إلى الجماعة من الباكستان وبعض البلدان الأخرى إذا رأوا أي أحمدي يقوم بأي خطأ صغير يرسلون خطابا إلى حضرة أمير المؤمنين قائلين دعوتموني إلى الأحمدية وانظروا ماذا هذا الأحمدي يقوم ويعمل تجاهي. فيقول حضرة أمير المؤمنين هذا شيء مميز بالنسبة للأناس والأحمديين الذين انضموا إلى الجماعة في ألمانيا. ويقول حضرة أمير المؤمنين أيضا أن هنالك الأساتذة يعربون اهتماما وتلفت أنظارهم تجاه الجماعة الإسلامية الأحمدية، وهذا بفضل من الله سبحانه وتعالى.
Now, there are other important, not races, but large groups of foreigners who live in Germany, like Turks. Turks are found in large numbers, and also Albanians, Bosnians, and Russians, and people from other European countries as well. Germany has opened their door to these foreigners with a far greater heart than any other European country. They say that it is a big country, it can afford. But it's not just that. When the country was divided into East and West, it had become halved, yet their hearts did not halve. They remained open and big. And they continued to accommodate not only Eastern foreigners, Africans of all sorts, Arabs. I think more Arabs have sought shelter in Germany than any other country in the world. And also Eastern European from everywhere, Pakistanis, Bangladeshis, Turks and whatnots. And yet, as long as they behave, they're all right. But if somebody begins to misbehave, then they cannot tolerate it. They become very rigid and even punishing to such people. With the grace of Allah, Ahmadis are not that. Not the type of people who would create small cartels here and there, groups of vagabonds, and mug people or do all the anti-social activities. That is why Ahmadis stand out as a people who are even better in many values and qualities than the Germans themselves they are. So I have been paid many compliments by German employers. They say, look here, we have experience of German and Pakistani Ahmadis working in our factories, and we can never lay them off because they work harder than the Germans. And they are definitely not less honest. The men was they were more honest even in behavior. One of them told me that he had come only for the sake of meeting the leader of the man who was working as a laborer in his factory. He said, let me see, set my eyes on that man who has produced such followers. But he didn't know. Of course I explained to him. It's not me, it is the Rasulullah Sallam, whose teaching is still alive, who 1400 years from us can still bring about revolutions. If people submit, of course, not otherwise. So we are only the instrument of bringing about that revolution meaningfully, because we believe in and honestly believe in, are sincere to sincere in loyalty to our purpose. Anyway, these are, other things. What I wanted to tell you was that the Germans are very impressed by character, not by words. If you show good character, they'll become interested in you. And that is why they do not listen to the anti-Ahmadiyya propaganda carried out by, I'm told, largely Kuwaitis and Saudians, or the institutions they support. They just throw them as filth. because they talk and we act. And our conduct, Islamic conduct, is so lovable to them. They say, what do you mean by that? Some German Muslims went to Saudi Arabia for Hajj recently, and they brought back the news that they were distributing literature in German language, in other European languages against Ahmadiyyat in the Hajj days. And they also, knowing that this was a contingent for Germany, they also distributed that too. So the Ahmadi inquired from him what was the impression. If he would tell him some of the objections raised there, he would answer. Answer? This was just trash. He tore it to. What do you mean by this and that? A small-minded people. We don't pay attention to such allegations at all. What we know is that your presentation of Islam is so beautiful. Why don't they present Islam like that to us? They're only after you. And this is all the service they're doing to Islam. Which you tell us positive values, positive things. Now that reminded me that this is something they can't do. They can't hold question answer sessions with them so openly as we do. Because we are 100% confident that the views expressed about Islam and Islamic values by Ahmadis, based on the Quran and as guided by Hazrat Masih Maud Islam, are so powerful, so attractive, that they can be presented in the broad daylight to anyone and you will never be defeated. They can't do the same. If an Iranian goes there for the presentation of Islam, whenever the question of Rushdie comes up, or the question of terrorism comes up in case of a Libyan or others appear, and the question of lynching people and murdering them for committing this crime and that crime in Saudi Arabia comes up, they will suddenly collapse. They can't answer, and they know it, and that is why they don't appear in public. I've been inviting them, the Saudians, to come to use Ahmadiyya television here. I'll give them equal time. Discuss things and let the world judge for themselves. So your propaganda will be carried out if you are really powerful in arguments to the whole world at our cost. They didn't respond. So this is the advantage we have in Germany. Now we are becoming the sole spokesman of Islam. We are emerging as that. And inshallah, within a matter of a few years, you will see Islam and Ahmadiyyat will really become one, as it is one, and the parallax between them will be removed. Right? Please. This seems to be the last part of the answer.
لقد ذكر حضرة أمير المؤمنين وقال أن هذا أريد أن أذكر أمرا هاما. هنالك الفرق المختلفة من الأتراك والبوسنيين والألبان والروس، فالدولة الألمانية فتحت أبوابها أكثر من أي دولة أخرى في أوروبا. وبعضهم يقولون أن هذه الدولة دولة كبيرة تستطيع القيام بهذا الشيء. فقال حضرة أمير المؤمنين لقد كانت الدولة الألمانية مقسمة إلى قسمين، ولكن قلوبهم لم تنقسم إلى قسمين. فليس فقط من الأتراك والبوسنيين والألبان، وإنما من العرب والبنغلاديشيين والباكستانيين وغيرهم. فبعض هؤلاء الفرق يسلكون الطرق الغير صحيحة ويقومون بالإخلال بالنظام، فهذا الشيء الذي يزعج السكان المحليين في تلك المنطقة حيث يقومون بتلك الأعمال. فالأحمديون لا يقومون بهذه الأعمال وهم مميزون عن جميع هؤلاء الناس. ولقد ذكر حضرة أمير المؤمنين أن بعض الناس أو أصحاب المصانع يقولون أن هنالك عامل أو صانع عامل أحمدي يشتغل في مصنع معين، وأن له ميزات وقيم خاصة عن جميع هؤلاء الفرق، وليس أقل صراحة وصدقا من الرجل الألماني إذا اشتغل في ذلك المصنع. فيقول حضرة أمير المؤمنين هذه تعاليم الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم والتي تؤدي إلى انقلابات، وهذا ما نؤمن به نحن. وقال حضرة أمير المؤمنين هذا أمر آخر لا نخوض فيه بالتفصيل، ولكن خلاصة القول أن الألمان معجبون بالأحمديين لقيمهم ومميزاتهم الخاصة، وأنهم يفعلون ويقومون بالعمل وليس بالقول فقط. فهنالك بعض الجمعيات التي جاءت إلى ألمانيا لتعادي الجماعة الإسلامية الأحمدية ولتعرض بعض الخلافات والأفكار الخاطئة عن الجماعة. فهؤلاء الناس يرفضون ذلك، لأن هذه الجمعيات فقط تقوم وتدعو بالقول فقط وليس بالفعل. وكان هنالك رجل قد ذهب إلى الحج وكانوا يوزعون أثناء فترة الحج بعض الكتيبات التي كتبت ضد الجماعة الإسلامية الأحمدية. فكانوا بما أن كانت تلك الفرقة من ألمانيا قاموا بتقديم الكتيبات باللغة الألمانية ضد الجماعة الإسلامية الأحمدية، ولكنهم لم يبدوا أي اهتماما بها، لأنهم فقط كانوا يشيعون ذلك ولم يكن فيها من الصدق في شيء، حيث لا يستطيعون الرد على أي شيء كتب في هذه الكتيبات. وكانوا يتجاهلون تلك الكتيبات ويقولون ليعرضوا الإسلام كما يعرضه الأحمديون. فالإسلام الذي يقوم المسلمين الأحمديين بعرضه إسلام نقي ويلفت ويقبله هؤلاء الناس في ألمانيا. وهؤلاء الناس أو الجمعيات المعادية للجماعة الإسلامية الأحمدية لا يستطيعون عقد مجالس أسئلة وأجوبة كما نعقدها نحن. فالقيم الإسلامية التي تقدمها الجماعة الإسلامية الأحمدية وبهداية من المسيح الموعود عليه الصلاة والسلام لا يمكن لأي أحد أن يهزمها. فإذا وقف أي رجل إيراني يجيب على بعض الأسئلة، وإذا وصلوا إلى قضية سلمان رشدي يقف ولا يستطيع أن يجادل الناس. وهنالك قضايا أخرى مثل قتل بعض الناس أو قطع الأيدي وغيرها، فإذا جاء أي ممثل من من المملكة السعودية أو غيرها فلا يستطيعون الرد على هذه الأمور. وقال حضرة أمير المؤمنين لقد دعوناهم جميعا على أن يقوموا بتقديم دعواهم وأن يقدموا نقاطهم على شاشة التلفزيون الإسلامي الأحمدي وعلى حسابنا، وليعرف الناس الفرق بين اعتقادات الجماعة الإسلامية الأحمدية واعتقادات هؤلاء الناس، وليتبينوا من هذا الأمر.
Have you made any programs since you came?
I'm working on the book about the life of the promised Messiah.
Which one?
This is a book which I'm writing.
Yourself? Originally?
Well, I'm taking information from different books.
Right, that's right, of course.
And then adding a little bit
of course, in your own style, of course, this is what you mean.
Yes.
Of course, all the writers on the biographies don't invent things from themselves. They have to borrow things from here and there and from different books. But the difference is made by the style of the presenter and the preferences of the presenter and the way he puts them across. So I'm looking forward to that. Have you read the recent book published by, not published by, it is in the press nowadays. You couldn't have read it. But have you heard of that, written by Aziz and Dr. Aziz Ahmed of America?
No.
You know, so far we have very few books on the biography of Hazrat Muhammad in English, which can deal with the subjects of people of this age in particular, in which they are interested, I mean. But the previous books were written in the context of Pakistan, India, mentality and their objections and so on. So they do not do justice to Hazrat Mashiach Islam's character as Imam of the whole world, because they were addressed to the people with small interest, like the pamphlets, anti-MTA pamphlets distributed in Saudi Arabia. They would not mean anything to the Germans or most Europeans. So that is why books written in that context of history on Hazrat Masih Wasallam cannot truly present his real godly personality. So Ian Adams wrote a book, but that was too small and too, cursory. So I told him to have another edition, do some more work. So he went to Qadian and also visited Pakistan. I said, meet the companions who are still alive. Meet the first generation of the Ahmadis who were raised under the benign care of the Sahaba, the companions themselves. And then judge for yourself what sort of man he was, what impact he created on the people and why. So this time he has improvised his book to a very large degree, and this is also a book worthy of reading. Have you got it? Latest book of Ian Adamson.
I think it is not yet published.
Not?
Not the
I
latest
gave it
published.
to find out. So these two now Aziz Ahmed's book, Dr. Aziz, that's excellent. He's a very good scholarly person who has written also on Islam before, which was translated into Greek because his wife is Greek, and it was for her sake perhaps that he presented Islam, which was translated. The book was translated by his own wife, and it has created a good impact. So I believe that you should also read that book. Other works in Arabic or English will only be found in reviews, old reviews, or other Jamaat magazines. Al-Majalla जो है फुरकान वगैरह के अरबी में थे ना आपके बजाय, when his father was the principal, Al-Bushra also will offer you. So, or if you have collected the material already, I know, then it will be too late, but if you go through these, then inshallah it will improve the quality of the book you are contemplating. Right?
Inshallah.
It will be very good to have a new book in Arabic directly written. Translations simply can't replace the requirement of original writing in a language. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Right. So you translate in brief what we have been talking about.
لقد سأل حضرة أمير المؤمنين الأستاذ مصطفى الثابت إذا كان قد سجل بعض البرامج هنا، ولكنه قال أنني أقوم الآن يقوم بكتابة كتاب، ويقول أنه يأخذ المعلومات ويقتبس المعلومات من كتب مختلفة. وقال حضرة أمير المؤمنين هذا شيء طبيعي مما ذكر عن المسيح الموعود عليه الصلاة والسلام. مثلا لا يمكن أن يقوم الكاتب باختراع من نفسه، وإنما يجب أن يقتبس ما ذكره الراوي أو ما ذكره المسيح الموعود عليه الصلاة والسلام. فقام حضرة أمير المؤمنين بتقديم بعض التعليمات في كتابة بعض الكتب أو الترجمة التي يقدمها بعض الناس من الأردية إلى الإنجليزية، ويجب أن تقدم بطريقة تفيد المجتمع الإنجليزي أو المجتمع الأوروبي، ولا تكتب بالطريقة أو بالعقلية التي يقبلها المجتمع الباكستاني أو الهندي وغيرها. وقدم تعليمات أخرى، وقال أن هنالك كتاب كتبه Ian Adams.
Ian Adams, I'm sorry. Ian Adams, yes. Adamson. Ian Adamson.
أن الكاتب أيون آدمز كتب كتابا ولكنه كان صغيرا، وقال له حضرة أمير المؤمنين أن يكتب كتابا أكثر طولا، وذهب إلى القاديان وهو في مراحل الطبع. ويقول حضرة أمير المؤمنين أن نريد أن نرى بعض الكتب المكتوبة بشكل مباشر باللغة العربية وليست تراجم، لأن التراجم لا تفيد كما تفيد الكتابة المباشرة بالعربية.
الحمد لله، جزاكم الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
السلام.